All right, so we're going to look at the Khan Academy problems from Wednesday, the 25th. This assignment, the first of the two assignments, there really weren't a lot of issues. I pulled the first question here, which was the most missed question, mainly to give you a visual. This is a visual that I've seen once for completing the square, kind of why it's called completing the square, that helped me, so I'm going to show it to you real quick. All right, we're going to think of it from an area perspective. So I'm going to start with a square that's x by x, so that would have an area of x squared. Now, I have 10 x's, so I'm going to take and I'm going to put 5 of the x's on this side by doing a 1 width and a height of x. So this piece has an area of x, and I'm going to do 5 of those across this side. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. All right, each of those are x. So now I'm at x squared plus 5x. Then I'm going to do the same thing down this side. All right, and each of these would have an area of x as well. All right, so it's called completing the square because really our goal is to find out how many units I'd have to put in to fill this square in entirely. So I think of it from a grid perspective. So I'm going to break coming off each of these. All right, I'm going to go straight across there. I'm going to cut down at the end. All right, and then I'm going to go straight across on each of these, so 5 times. Now, notice how we're cutting this into a whole lot of little squares. All right, that's the number of squares that I would have to fill in to complete the square and make this a perfect square. All right, so if I count this, it's 5 down and 5 across, so that's 25 individual squares in this section over here. So if I add 25 to this, what I'm going to have on this side, I'm going to have x plus 5. On this side, I'm going to have x plus 5. So x plus 5 quantity squared would be my area for that square. All right, but the question is complete the square, and all we're going to do is we're going to put a 25 in here because that's the number we'd have to add on. All right, in an algebraic sense, completing the square is basically saying, hey, what can I add on, right, so that I can write this as a perfect square trinomial in factored form. All right, and to do that, I'm basically simple rule. I'm going to take half the middle term and square it. So I've got 5 squared, which is 25. All right, and that's going to factor for us to x plus 5 or x plus 5 quantity squared. All right, now again, the reason we're going to be doing this is because we're going to take circles from expanded form and we're going to change them into standard form where we can find the center and the radius very easily. All right, so the next set of problems is where we had a little bit more trouble in the homework set. All right, and in this set of problems, it asks us to change the form things were written. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start here with the first problem, x squared minus 14x. I'm going to add a blank, subtract a blank, and then I'm going to leave the plus 40 there. All right, and my goal is going to be to complete the square on this first section. So half of 14 is 7. 7 squared is 49. So I'll go 49 in the first blank. To keep this in balance, so I'm not really changing any values, I'm going to subtract a 49 there. All right, so I'm going to push this together. This first piece, I created it to be a perfect square trinomial. So I'm going to go ahead and factor it. So I've got x minus 7 squared. And then I've got minus 49 plus 40. So that's a minus 9 equals 0. Now I want to match up to my structure that's over here. And notice the equal sign is between the x minus 7 quantity squared and the 9. So I'm going to add that 9 over. And I've got x minus 7 quantity squared equals 9. So in this first blank, to get an x minus 7, I'm going to need to put a negative 7 in there. And for the second blank, I'm going to have to put a 9. All right, so that's very typical type of problem, standard example. Occasionally some weird things can happen, like what happens on the next one. All right, if I look at the next one and I follow the same strategy, x squared plus 16x plus blank minus blank plus 64 equals 0. Half of 16 is 8. 8 squared is 64. So I added 64, so I take away 64. All right, I'm going to factor this piece. So that's an x plus 8 times x plus 8, or x plus 8 squared. And then negative 64 and positive 64 cancel out, so I just have equals 0. All right, so this was actually a perfect square trinomial before we even started. So I've got an x plus 8, so I'm going to toss an 8 in there, and then the other side is 0. All right, so taking a look at another more traditional one, x squared minus 6x. I'm going to add a blank, subtract a blank, minus 16 equals 0. All right, half the middle term 6 is 3. 3 squared is 9. All right, I added 9, so I'm going to subtract 9 to keep things in balance. And now I'm going to look to factor this piece. All right, so this one I have my x, and I'm going to have minus 3 because I need a middle term of negative 6x. All right, so that's going to be x minus 3 quantity squared. And then minus 9 minus 16 is minus 25 equals 0. But I need to move that 25 over to the other side so that I match the structure that they have. And we get to here. So I'm going to need to put a negative 3 in the first blank, and I'm going to need to put a 25 in the second blank. All right, those are really the main mistakes that we've seen. I hope that helps. That's just kind of a quick run through of the assignments from Wednesday the 25th. Thanks.